Greetings! Welcome to the SciFi Pubcast, the podcast that tries to be a pub, and perhaps someday a pub that tries to be a podcast. As always, we are looking for customers to come visit our bar. So if you're passionate about something, you want to be in a podcast, well, please let us know because this bar is all about community. And if you want us to help us out, please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever you find the show, joining our Discord server, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Yes, we're back. The SciFi Pubcast was on a brief hiatus, unplanned, but we're back. Yeah, some tech issues, some moving issues, some health issues, but it's May, and May 2021. I think we're going to have hopefully a great summer. What do you think, guys?
I think you could be right. Maybe
gotta be better than last summer.
Yes,
yeah, that is also true.
That's true. My name is Joel. I'm the owner of the so-called Sci-Fi Pubcast, so to speak. We have Derek Beebe and Carrie Simpson in the house today. So,
hey.
Yeah, Carrie.
Hey.
What's the latest update of Southern California? Does it still exist?
Southern California does still exist. We are. LA is slowly coming out of the various lockdowns and stuff because our case numbers have dropped off a cliff, and we're back. We're slowly getting back to doing what we're supposed to be doing, except from home because I'm still working from home. And that's going to be happening for the foreseeable future, which is awesome.
Fantastic. I'm in London, Ontario, Canada, and Ontario is still in lockdown, and it's still going to be probably another month before they lift the lockdown order. So
I'm sorry.
So yeah, I think I'm losing more hair, but such is life. There's a lot more people out there in worse positions than I am. So yeah,
this is also true.
Life can be a challenge at times. And of course, we have Derek. Derek, what's the latest from the hills of Pennsylvania?
Well, during our little hiatus, I unfortunately contracted COVID, so that was unfortunate. But the good news is it happened after I got my first vaccine, so it wasn't debilitating for me. It was just like a bad flu, fortunately, and I am now double vaccinated. So I am as safe as anyone can be because not only did I get both my shots, but I also got COVID and got through it. So I am ready to start living my life again.
Excellent. Great to hear. Yay. And I got my first shot up in Ontario, and I had a bad reaction, major fever, but I survived that, and I encourage people to get vaccinated. Okay.
Yes. That's everybody needs to get vaccinated.
Yes. Speaking about reasons why we need vaccinations, Derek, how's our kitchen doing?
Well, you haven't let me back in it yet, what with the whole COVID infection and all, so I don't know what's going on there. There's still all that police tape all over it. Can I rip that stuff down yet?
Yeah, please do. And we have to get back into business, man. Like we're running a business, so to speak, and a fake business that has no interest in making profit, but still, okay.
So I'm allowed to start...
Wait. Because I've had the Ewoks in there sanitizing everything. There were a couple of things. We're not sure if they were science experiments Derek left out or what. But yeah, they can. They're having issues.
Yeah, great. And if Derek ever patents any of this stuff, I want my take. Okay, just say.
So does this mean that I'm allowed to start manhandling the food without washing my hands again? Then?
No, you need to do that, dude. You need that. Yeah. Oh. Hey. Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
Hey.
Sorry. You lost. My camera stopped working, so I had to switch over to the other one.
Yeah.
That's okay. You guys don't need to see my face.
There you go. Who cares? We were just going to wing it. There we go. We're back. Yes, I'm looking at some tech issues. And so on YouTube, we're probably not going to edit this out because... Whatever. It's all good.
Said, you guys don't need to see my face.
Yeah, details.
Most of the time.
Details.
I've actually heard that most people just watch our YouTube feed on mute and don't even listen to us.
Yeah, there we go. As long as we, have our name out there and have fun and have some great discussions. Speaking of which, we're talking youth culture and the treatment of the elderly in science fiction. That's the topic. So
that's a that's a cherry topic.
I know it's good. It's good. Well, let's put it this way, okay? There's so much death in the world and age. We haven't figured out how to stop time yet, or at least slow it down. We can speed it up by going really fast towards the to like the speed of light. But the whole slowing the age process down, not so much right now. But like Jack Weinberg, the American New Left activist, said in 1964, "Don't trust anybody over 30." Yes, with a similar sentiment, science fiction has long speculated on the tension between younger and older generations and the effect on society. Spoiler alert!
But wait.
Doesn't go well for the
Joel,
elderly. Okay,
Joel.
yeah.
But by that logic, none of the three of us are trustworthy. I mean, we all knew Derek's food wasn't trustworthy, but this set we're all over 30 here.
I know it's.
I'll have you know that I stayed with 29. You know, I just celebrate the 10th anniversary of my 29th birthday because you don't want to hit that 3. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. Then people,
yeah. I'm as old as Star Wars, so I have to admit my age because Star Wars admits its age.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I'm probably past the top of the hill, so to speak. I'm on the other way down. Yeah, it's no fun getting old, but you get to know more, get better perspective, or at least a more clearer perspective on things in life, and well, eventually you'll die. So there's that cheerful stuff. Yes. Mm-hmm. And this is an interesting topic because we don't, I think, generally as a community, as a pop culture community, or even as just consumers, talk about issues with the elderly as much as we should. So I think this is a good topic. I think it is very good in the sense of talking about these important issues because science fiction is all about speculating, and it's one big thought experiment. And I think a good jumping off point for this conversation is the 1976 film Logan's Run. Yes, I made you guys watch that, right? So
yes, you did.
Yeah. Please don't hate me. It's definitely from the 70s. It's directed by Michael Anderson and starring Michael York. You may know Michael York from the Austin Powers series. Jenny True?
Babylon 5?
Oh, Babylon 5, yes. Jen, I'm going to mispronounce her last name. I actually YouTubed it so I wouldn't screw her last name up, but I'm going to screw it up anyways. Jenny Agutar? Agatar. And Peter Ustinov, which is a famous fellow from the 60s and 70s.
Also Richard Jordan.
In this film, which became a TV series for one season before it got canceled the following year, you have these inhabitants of a domed city who live in a carefree state of bliss while maintaining the balance between resources and consumption. Yes, the whole scarcity argument. Of course, the catch is anyone over the age of 30 is ritually renewed, i.e. killed. So what do you think, guys? Good government policy? Yes, no, yes?
Again, considering that all of us are over 30, that's a crap policy.
Yeah, I think it should definitely be 40. I think 40 should be the cutoff.
No, because I'm also over 40.
Yeah, like I'm in my, let's see, my 40s as well, and the whole 50 number is coming up sooner than I wanted it to be. Hopefully I make it that far. Yeah, I think probably 500. But then again, if we expand our life, age, capacity to say we all live to 500 years old, eventually someone has to say, fine, let's cap it off at like 450 or something. Yeah. And that might be happening. You think about that. The rise of artificial intelligence, nanorobots, they are going to be a lot better at extending human life, I think, in the next several generations. Not for us, probably.
Yeah, agreed.
But,
probably not for us.
Not for us, yes. I can't even go down to the
although
pub
you never know.
Yeah, you never know. We might get lucky, yeah. And
But Joel, if Star Trek has taught us anything, is that extending life indefinitely is usually a bad idea. Usually leads to bad consequences.
Yeah, the whole thing is that you can extend our human lives, at least in theory, but that's not going to protect us from being killed through car accidents or violence or impact, stuff like that, right?
But trying to make yourself immortal never works.
Generally not, but I don't want to die anytime soon. I might change. I might get to the point where I'm in so much pain and the morphine drip doesn't do the job anymore, and I want to fade out and become stardust again. Yeah, in a more real sense. We'll see. Oh, I'm not there yet. Not today. Death will not come to me today. Not today.
Not today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting looking at these conversations because take Logan's Run. Yeah, it's a corny movie. There's some good aspects to it. I really like the scene in the Capitol building with Peter Astronaut with all the cats going off of that. It's a hard job naming cats. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you have an entire book of poetry about talking about the naming of cats.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a correlation between cat ownership and age. Maybe. There you go. Derek, I got to ask you, man, what do you think of Logan's Run? What's your take on that?
It kind of felt like very generic, stereotypical 1970s Cold War fear, post-apocalyptic sci-fi. I watched it recently for the first time since I was a kid, and it didn't really stand out to me in any way. It was just kind of like a very generic story, generic action. The robot was kind of cool.
Yes.
The robot was creepy, man.
Yeah. Kind of cool. Kind of feel like just creepy, and yeah, right. It's definitely has a Star Trek original series feel to it. And I like the fact that they use physical effects because of the time era.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminded me a lot of Epcot and plans and conversation around Disney's Epcot Center in Disney World in Florida, right? And how these cities.
Well, yeah,
of the
because
future,
everyone was happily going. Well, yeah, because everyone was happily going to the renewal ceremony, and yeah, they were very, 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 very happy to watch, their fellow people get killed off.
Yeah, but it just speaks to the insidious nature of trusting state authority because, look, we have happy life. We can eat, we can go to sex parties, we can do whatever we want. But renewal.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah,
Well, no, I actually I haven't read the book for Brave New World, but I did watch the series, and I it's like watching Logan's Run, and I had never seen it before. I was like, okay, so this is like Brave New World, but without the drugs, without the happy drugs, and no one really cares that you don't live past 30.
Yeah, and it's like I live in the moment, and but is that a fair criticism on the youth? I suppose it changes every generation, but there's some similar themes, I suspect, right? Because just to generalize, and yes, we are generalizing because individuals differ in many ways, but the youth, and I was one once upon a time, the whole notion of hope and naivety, right, and thinking they can live forever because just the way the youth operate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why the militaries of the world hire 18-year-olds as soldiers and not 47-year-olds.
Yeah, that is true.
Except in the novel Old Man's War by John Scalzi. That's where they hire 80-year-olds to fight because they give them new young cloned bodies to fight in.
Ah, okay. That's interesting.
Mm.
Actually, now that I think about it, that book is a good subject for this podcast. Neither of you have read it, but
no,
it's John Scalzi's most famous book. It's called Old Man's War, and it's kind of like a Starship Troopers type thing. Only the soldiers are old men and women in their 80s, and you basically sign your life away to join the military, and they clone you a young new body, and they transfer your mind from your old body into the new body, and you have to, fight in so many wars before you get to retire.
Mm.
Yeah, it's kind of like Altered Carbon on Netflix, right? This idea that you can live for thousands of years, but yeah, you become almost immortal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole becoming immortal, that and if you read the books for Altered Carbon, it's like sometimes it can do like damage to your psyche to do that, and it's only really the super rich who can live forever in like decent bodies because they can afford to clone themselves 50,000 times.
Yeah. That's a common theme, I think, in the world, right? Like the super rich will do what they do, and everyone else is
Yeah.
Struggling on the on
And
the
the rest
bottom.
of us,
Yeah.
and the rest of us are shit out of luck.
Yeah. Going back to Logan's Run, however, what I
Yes.
really like about this movie, the turtlenecks. My God. And the 70s fashion, right? And the set designs. Makes me feel nostalgic for my parents' generation. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, we should get like turtlenecks done up for the pub. What do you guys think?
Turtlenecks make my head look really big. I mean, when I was younger and thinner, I wouldn't have minded being a Sandman just because they get to wear the black turtlenecks, but
Yeah. And it's an interesting.
but now no, not
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. And the name Sandman is interesting in the sense that they're the ones in Logan's Run that are the arm of the state or the machine that runs the place, and their job is to chase down people who don't want to be renewed at age 30. So they're kind of like a Blade Runner, kind of like a Bounty Hunter, but just a different type of setup there. And this whole like Sandman, to me, it suggests things like dreams and sleep, right? I think there's a difference. I think older folks is more into sleep because they need to renew, and you have the whole idea as dreaming, right? You have the youth dreaming of a better future, of a better society. What can they do? What can they bring to the table? Yeah, and that can read too much into it. It's all metaphors. Life's all about metaphors, right there. And let me ask you this too, because I'm doing a lot of thinking because now I'm back in the thinking game. That because I've just made a major career change in my life, and I'm thinking about this is that if you're younger, if you're say the youth is a general catch-all for younger people, you bring some fresh ideas right to the tables. I think in science fiction, but most science fiction is written by people who are older or produced by people who are older. It's kind of hard to read a book from someone who's in their teens. I know that it happens, but generally, I read authors who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s. Just the way the writing career takes off. You need to build a trade, a skill set, become competent at your craft, to get it published in order for you to get stuff read. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
It also takes you 10 years querying agents and publishers in order to get published in the first place.
Yeah.
Unless you self-publish, which is a thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by that time, you get jaded and cynical and worn down, and you become like your parents, right? So it's like the cycle of life. Raise Cuba. What was the lion cub up on top of the hill, right? Okay. I probably got the name of the line wrong, but there.
Timba.
Timba. There you go. Yeah.
Well, Stephen King said that everybody has X number of bad pages in them. So basically, you just have to start writing, and you just have to write all those bad pages out of your system before you can actually start writing good pages.
Yeah. Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Again, the more time you have on Earth as a living person, the more time you can develop skill sets. The trade-off is you get to a point where your body slows down, and you're not going to be as efficient at the physical stuff. I find, usually say take the U.S. SEALs, they get recruited and hired on this, when they're in their early 20s, and then they can scuba dive to the very depths of the ocean because their bodies are at the prime. Whereas if I look at the deep end of a swimming pool, my body kind of rejects that. You know.
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing too, because I mean, my teacher will tell us, if once you're over 50, don't work so hard, because you can't train I can't train in my 40s like I did when I was in my 30s. My knees just don't work that well. But there's that aspect of it, but there's also the aspect of, if you keep your mind doing stuff and you keep your mind learning, that keeps you young. It keeps you from, succumbing to being old and crotchety and just being a miserable person.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it increases our knowledge level by reading, by being active in the community, and perhaps even make us more wise with time. Right, the role of wisdom. Not saying everyone who's old is wise, because it doesn't happen. We all know people who are unwise in life, but perhaps age can be a teacher as well. I don't know.
Perhaps
Perhaps not.
When you said that, I first thought you said age will make us more wives with time.
That.
Of course you did,
unwise,
Derek.
Unwise. My God, nuts.
Wow.
Nuts. But there's lots of interesting questions to ask, and it's we might be jumping around, but even Star Trek dealt with some of the stuff, right? There's a Next Generation episode in season 4, episode 22, called "Half a Life."
I remember that episode.
Right. It has the fellow from MASH in it.
David Ogden Stiers.
Yeah, who played Winchester on MASH, and it's interesting because in the society is, of course, that if you hit 60, it's time to be euthanized.
Well, I mean,
yeah, go ahead. Like, that doesn't make much sense to me as someone from from North America in 2021 on planet Earth, but
no, it doesn't. It doesn't make it still doesn't make any sense. But I mean, there is a progression. Back Logan's Run, they said 70, 30, and you're done. TNG, they've doubled age at least, and given you like twice as many years to have your fun with. Yeah. I guess.
I don't know if you guys read any of the DS9 relaunch novels, but one of the major characters of it was a 100-year-old Starfleet commander. And it was kind of a big thing about how this is, even though you're 100 years old, you can still be an active physical person in Starfleet thanks to the medical technology they have available now.
Yeah.
Well, even Bones made an appearance on the, pilot for TNG. So, I mean, he was
right.
What?
He didn't look very spry there, though.
No, he didn't look very spry, but D. Kelly probably wasn't very spry in '86 either. So
yeah.
I can imagine, because I used to work for the government, and governments generally hire people every generation. There's a wave of new hires, right? And you're looking up, you're trying to progress through an organization, but you have these folks who are towards their end of their working lives, and they're not going to retire. Right, so if we work longer, the odds of us being promoted will be less. So it's sometimes you want these folks to, hey, just retire so I can take your position. And I think that's just human nature. Is it right or wrong? I don't know, but it is what it is, right? It's jealousy. It's you've done your time. You got the rank, so to speak. Now I move out so that I can actually stop being the lowest of the low.
But do you want to be getting rid of people who are actually contributing and being useful, though? I mean not to get into politics or anything, but look at the last year's presidential election. That came down to three old white guys.
Yeah.
And two of them were pulling in the youth vote, and it's just like, okay. So obviously the issue is not that they're in their 70s, and the issue is that the issue is that they have the ideas, and they are the adults in the room,
yeah,
so to speak.
It's a balance game, right? And
yeah.
I don't know. If you're a young person listening to this podcast, first thing, please be over 18 because this is a pub, or 19 or 21, wherever you're listening to the show at. But if you are, let us know. If we've managed to piss you off at this point, please, yes, call us out on social media. So there's that.
Or call Joel out because he's the oldest.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm going to be sacrificed soon, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Like, you get stuff like, The Man in High Castle, right? Was it Amazon, loosely based off the Philip K. Dick short story, right? There was one episode towards the end of season 3, so season 3, episode 10. It's Yarnil, which is translates from my bad German to year 0, right? And you have senior Nazi leadership in the series encouraging young people to raise up and to, basically through writing and use of violence to rid the society of the weak. The weak is, of course, another word for the elderly, right? Going through like a purge. So that's kind of, a purge. Where have we heard this name before? Then we have the Purge movies too, right? Which is kind of similar in effect, right? Sure, it's not designed to target the elderly per se, but in effect, it disproportionately affects the elderly, the weakest people who can't fight back.
Well, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but if anyone has seen Invincible, that theme becomes rather prominent as well.
Yes. I haven't seen the Purge movies. I think I know what happened in the movies because I've read the Wikipedia articles. It's a good place just to get general information. I don't know.
I would say that the Purge movies are more of a political message franchise about left versus right. It's more about violent right-wingers using they're basically like right-wing Trumpers who created the Purge in the first place, and then they use it, to target. It's actually more about targeting minorities and poor people than it is about the elderly. It's more of a political spectrum thing than an ageist thing.
Yeah, but can you have both? Right? Yeah, I think you can, but I know what you're saying, Derek. It makes sense to me.
It's about rich versus poor because the rich people can afford to make their homes secure fortresses, whereas the poor people are stuck in these tenements and stuff, and they can't protect themselves when the rampaging hordes show up.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but at some point, the people behind those walls are going to run out of people to do shit for them. Because everyone else will have been purged, and then they're going to have to, fend for themselves. And do we really see that happening?
Yeah,
I mean, it's the line from it's the line from Rise of Skywalker. There's more of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Rise of Skywalker has a very ageist message too, because they really go after that old man in that old temple. They did not like him at all. All those people ganged up on him.
Yeah, I know, and he just wanted to be left alone.
He was trying to, subjugate the entire galaxy under his thumb again.
Yeah.
Details. I know.
Details. It's funny because if you go back to youth culture, part of me, always think of the 1960s counterculture movement, right? Because you have such a radical change from the previous generation to the next generation, right? In terms of values, in terms of music, in terms of attitude towards sex, towards foreign relations, all this stuff. And you see several different movies from the time period. Some of them in science fiction, like Logan's Run, that comes out. Now, Logan's Run is in 1976. But you have films like Wild in the Streets from 1968, which is this bizarre movie which just basically it's about the politics of the United States. The idea is that they should drop the age of voting to 14. So 14 or fight, right? So imagine if 14-year-olds have the right to vote. Would that change anything?
Well, I know there's been a bit of a movement to drop the age to 16.
Yeah.
And the entire movement around dropping the voting age to 18 was back around when there was a draft. Because if you're old enough to fight, you're old enough to vote on whether or not you should be fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know there's some issues there. Personally, I don't think it matters. We've talked about the whole dropping the voting age business before on the show. One show I remember with Randall Graham, author of Before Life and Afterlife Crisis. Drink. And if I remember the conversation correctly, which I may not have, is that what does it matter? If 14-year-olds want to vote, they will go out and vote. If they want to stay at home and watch and not vote, then who cares, right? I think, didn't Randall say, like, let's give the vote to chickens or something like that to make a point? Yeah. What do you guys think?
I don't know that chickens would understand the ballot, let alone vote for anything. But yeah, sure, give the vote to 14-year-olds. I mean, they're the ones who are going to have to live on the planet that we're all screwing up. So
yeah,
they should have a say, right?
Yeah, like our generation should be doing something to help the environment better, but right, but we can only act as individuals. So perhaps it's
Right.
unfair to blame an entire generation on because of certain sins that are happening. But there's also another movie, this is hilarious. This is the plot. This is from 1970. It's called Gas, or the full title is Gas, or It Became Necessary to Destroy the World in Order to Save It. It's a Roger Corman flick, right? Roger Corman, the B movie expert and extraordinaire from the mostly 60s and 70s. But the premise is that there's some sort of gas that's released from a military base in the States that kills everyone above the age of 25. So we're all dead here on this podcast. But saying that, do you think if that would happen, would the remaining people under the age 25, would it become like Lord of the Flies right away, or would it be like a communal utopia?
I don't know.
I'm going to go with Lord of the Flies.
I'm thinking Lord of the Flies. But again, that's just
Kids are cruel.
Interesting. These good thought experiments, and hopefully,
that just reminded me of the TV series Jeremiah, which was done by J. Michael Straczynski. It's about a virus that wipes out all the old people, leaving only the young people behind.
Yeah.
Mm.
Not a great
on my
show.
list.
But it is a theme in fiction. You got like Isaac Asimov's wrote a novel called Pebble in the Sky from 1950. Similar aspects of what happens to the elderly or see, like, what is old, right? So like we all have our different ideas what is an old person, but if you're 70 years old, a 60-year-old is not an old person. If you're 20 years old, a 60-year-old is probably an old person in your perspective. We have a novel from 2007 by Christopher Buckley called Boomsday. Is when the younger generation takes their vengeance out on the baby boomers. Because why wouldn't you? I'm not a baby boomer, thankfully.
Well, I mean, the millennials are kind of taking their vengeance on the boomers right now. Yeah. There's a whole OK Boomer movement.
Yeah, which I think is unfair, but it is what it is,
Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. The us Gen Xers are just like whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I need to cut another cup.
We're going to have to talk to Gen Z about self-reliance and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hey, and then there's also this whole Norwegian Swedish thing going on too, right? You have Midsummer from the horror film from 2019 by Ari Aster as the director. Have you guys seen that?
No,
yes,
I have not.
It was very disturbing.
It is.
I fast forwarded through half of it because it's like 2.5 hours long, but it is still incredibly creepy and disturbing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Back in, like, we're talking about like Vikings and Viking cultures. You get to a point where you're burdened on your community, on your village. So what do they do? You take a walk off a cliff, and they found like real archaeological sites that suggest this did happen. And even something as like the silly 3-season TV show called Norsemen, which is Norwegian. which is quite funny. It's on Netflix, at least in Canada, right? You know, you have all these elderly fighter types, right? Warrior types, and they have to camp in the woods because they've been exiled from the village because they're old, and we don't want old people. Yeah,
Mhm.
you know. So there's a lot of ways society can teach the elderly. To me, like I think the people who are later in life should be respected and should be treated with honor, and they should be able to tend to their own gardens or to their wineries. But of course, that might be a pipe dream. You know, I want all people to be treated with respect and all that good stuff. How we get there? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
But Midsummer.
Before
Go ahead.
before we get too far away from Arthur C. Clarke, I was actually reading that he wrote a book called The City and the Stars, and it's the exact same premise as Logan's Run.
Oh yeah.
I read the synopsis just now. It is the exact same story as Logan's Run, only it also has aliens in it. That's the only difference. So they probably ripped this off to make Logan's Run.
Yeah, Logan's Run is actually based on a novel, but they only took two key story elements from it. Pre-production on the movie was just terrible, apparently, and lots of ups and downs. And the film obviously suffers from that. But interesting.
And speaking of copies, the 2005 Michael Bay movie, The Island, has basically the same premise as Logan's Run. It's about a walled city of people living in decadence, and then they win the lottery and they get taken away to be killed. Only in that instance, they're clone copies for people in the real world, and they're being harvested for their organs. But it's the same basic premise.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's disturbing on many different levels.
Although what you said, Joel, about about Logan's Run, the movie being plagued by issues and stuff, that explains a lot, because there. And I get that, 70s movies and even sci-fi movies, we don't expect a whole lot of, depth and explanation about stuff. But I was like, no, they could have, explained a couple of things a bit better. And then there was the whole end where, Peter Ustinov's character is just, hanging out. He has a bonfire going. And then the crowd of youths, they just trample over the open fire pit. And I'm like, okay, y'all know that's gonna be painful, right? Apparently not.
Maybe they've never seen an open flame before.
Nope. And apparently they were too fascinated by the old guy to worry about getting burned or something.
Oh, wow. Hey, how does Star Trek treat its elderly? We have Picard, who's retired to the state to work on his wines, but can he do that because it's a family winery and he inherited that, or was he? Or all old people can go to to home like that? I don't know. And of course, it varies.
Yeah, it depends, because we also had Rafi, who was living in a trailer out near Vasquez Rocks, which apparently in the 24th century gets severely underdeveloped because there are way fewer houses in the area in season 1 of Picard than there are currently.
Yeah.
I actually can't remember. Was there any ageist discrimination against Picard in the Picard series? I mean, or wasn't he only exiled because of the whole Romulan situation?
Well, he pretty much exiled himself by quitting Starfleet.
Oh yeah, that's right. So nobody ever looked down on him because he was old, right?
Well, there was the guy at Starfleet who was like, I'm sorry, who are you? I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. I know. That just sparks something in my mind, because there's also a relationship between age and ability to reproduce, right? How useful are you to a society if you can't reproduce anymore? And it's different between men and women, and to various degrees. And yeah, so that's a runabout, awkward way to suggest, or ask the question: what is the value of a person later on in life? Right? It's hard because it depends on society. There's a there's a famous short story from Jack London, an adventure novelist and writer back from 1902 called The Law of Life, which speaks about Inuit up in the far north being left to die on the ice because his tribe moved on because they have to follow the animals in order to hunt, in order to sustain the tribe. And it's only a couple pages long. It's sad, but it's just the law of life. That's the conclusion. That's and the fellow, the person, the old former chief, I believe chief, is okay with that because it was understood. That's how the society operated. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a very big difference between, that a nomadic lifestyle like that, you're only as good as the weakest person in the group. So if you're dependent on animal migration patterns in order to live, and and grandma can't keep up, then what do you do? At some point, you have to kind of jettison the people who are not pulling their weight.
Yeah, and
it's not something I'm suggesting for society as a whole, but mind you, but in a more modern society, or society like ours, there's knowledge that the older people have that might come in useful. There's
but that's all on Wikipedia anyway.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, you're old if you're like me, and I have to watch things with closed caption on. Okay, that's a first world only problems right there. Well, it's a whole thing. The saying, right? Old age and treachery will always beat youth and exuberance. I believe it's one David Mamet. I think my dad used to have that behind the bar. So it's like, there's something to be said about having a better understanding of human nature, or rightly or wrongly, and using that to your advantage, right? Which is a knowledge thing. And I think the other way sometimes can be more realistic and pragmatic, but at the trade-off of being cynical and jaded and being, being hard to accept change and being hard to accept new ideas. Yeah. So being stubborn and pig-headed works in some circumstances, but not in others. Yeah, so I just call myself old and pig-headed and stubborn. Great. There you go.
I wasn't gonna say
it. And you have to wonder, is there a way to reduce the resentment felt between generations? Is there what can we do better?
I don't know, because I was actually ironically I was just reading this article earlier this morning about the people who don't understand that children's entertainment today is children's entertainment today, and stuff that's made for kids is not made for you, and have to learn to deal with that, and just because Disney, for example, decides to evolve what it puts out, it's not an affront to you, because it wasn't actually made for you. It was made for kids. So just deal with it and stop, going on about how they ruined your childhood because whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because the older you get, the more friends you will lose, especially towards the end, towards your lifespan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it does affect your sense of being part of the community, because it's just speaking generally, you can become more lonely. There's less of a way, and your mortality is more apparent. If you lose, all your friends, and many of your friends to death, that really has the ability to focus on what's important in life when death will be knocking on your door shortly, rather than, say, later. Oh, man, this is depressing. I had lots of
I
more
think it's a good thing that I never had friends in the first place.
Oh, God. There we go. Bang, bang, bang.
Again, I wasn't gonna say it, but if you're while you're on the subject, Derek, no, I'm kidding.
Like, you think about this, like what happens on a generational ship, right? When we try to expand outside of our solar system, and maybe a couple hundred years, or maybe next year if things go really well. I don't know, but there you have a purpose. Yeah, the purpose is to get to the new solar system, and it'll take you 10 generations to do that. Yeah, there's going to be some wacky stuff that it's going to grow out of it in terms of society. I can tell you that, right? Because the yet to be born generation may not share the mission objectives and the original mission objectives. Good sci-fi right there. Yeah, write about it. Why not? I'm sure right as hell.
Cool.
Yeah. I got lots more talking points, but I kind of forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, Joel. The mind's the first thing to go, right?
Yes.
Or the memory, anyway.
Or the liver, one or two. Yeah. Any other comments on youth culture and the treatment of the elderly in science fiction? Anything?
You've given me a lot to think about, Joel. Am I undesired because no one will reproduce with me, or will no one reproduce with me because I'm undesired? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Joel, you want to take? Joel, you should probably
cue the gif of the little girl saying, "Why not both?"
Yes, you need to read up on evolutionary biology, okay, Dirk? All right, we're going to close the doors. This show is released as a podcast and on YouTube. Subscribe today and check out our Discord. It's a great source of news and discussion. We're on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I do the Twitter and Instagram, and Derek does the Facebook. Derek, you're doing a great job with the Facebook page.
Thank you.
We're, of course, only old folks actually use Facebook because if you're cool, you're not going to be on Facebook. But hey, you're doing a great job anyways, okay? So what else is there? Yes, see, if you want to email us all your criticisms and make us feel very insecure about our own lives, please send your email to management@scifipubcast.space. Carrie, what's your Twitter address?
My Twitter handle is Carrie Blackfire42. That's KERI Blackfire42.
Great. And you are on some other podcasts, right?
I am. I'm on DC Talk, the Cape Chronicles, and Enter the Dojo, which are all over on the Random Chatter Network.
Excellent. Please check them out. Support podcasters because we're doing this as a hobby because we love the material.
Yes.
Derek, what's your Twitter address, sir?
I'm at Derek J. Beebe.
Okay, and let's see. My Twitter address is at Joel_Welch, WELCH. Randall will be back probably in a show or two, like everyone else. He's always a casual full-time host, basically. So if you're looking for Randall, yes, you can bother him on Twitter at Randall_Graham. He's the author of Before Life and Afterlife Crisis. Drink. We do not get paid to say that, at least directly, right? Okay, there's that. So it's closing time. Please take care and make it home safely, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Music provided courtesy of Logan Rathbone. Podcast logo by Jea Rhea. Copyrighted Joe Welch. Listen responsibly, and we can't wait for your next visit to our fine establishment. Cheers.